Alright guys, so I decided I would get out here and do this sooner than later, so just going to mash up a couple videos so it's not like this ridiculously long one. So I also don't want to flood you guys with a ton of videos, but I'm going to go quickly here so I don't start rambling. Intake side is off. Going to work right now on taking the manifolds off, or the manifold bolts off, so I can get this off here. People that are watching this that are building Saabs or have any interest in building Saabs, this is the Trust manifold. There's nothing wrong with this manifold, except I don't love where the wastegate placement is. I had originally asked for it to be over here so it would go back down into the exhaust. Tim didn't do it, so kind of disappointing there. Anybody that's shopping, I would absolutely point you towards Matty over at Corona Performance. I know that he's starting to make some manifolds. He just built a really big, really nice kit for 9.5s or the T7 cars. If you guys are looking to make power, it's certainly the way to go. It's like a full bolt-on kit. So check out Corona Performance. Matty's great. He supports the Saab scene. He's always at the shows. Super approachable, super nice, always willing to help out, so check him out. If you actually want to see the kit on a car, Frank Bialy has one. I think his Instagram, I think, is the Saab Kid. Check him out. It's a beautiful car anyways. The manifold, the turbo kit just adds to it, so check it out. So anyways, this is coming off, and then we'll take a look at the spark plugs, start measuring and make sure that we don't have a bent rod. Again, I'm only really concerned about the bent rod because of the amount of water that went through the engine, the way this head gasket popped. So I'm crossing my fingers, and I'm hoping that the water in the exhaust was after. So as the engine cooled down, I'm hoping that that's the case. We'll see. So see ya next time I see you anyways. Engine will be apart. See ya. All right, back. I got everything undone here. I can't stress to you guys, especially Saab guys that have these manifolds, even on stock cars, to be honest with you, all original. Pick yourself up some stainless steel, good quality stainless steel studs. These never, not just the studs, but stainless steel nuts too. I've never had an issue with these coming out. They're in there, they're seated. These have an Allen head at the wrench. I mean, buy ARPs if that's what you want to do and spend the money. But do it. Do it as preventative maintenance, to be honest with you. One of the worst jobs I ever had to do on my old 9.5 was try to extract this stud because it had snapped. So the unfortunate thing too is that once one snaps, you know, the other one's snapping because it's taken all the force from the manifold expanding and shrinking. So anyways, this is off. I can't do both. I can't take the turbo off and hold the camera, but this is all done. Because it's a whole set, there's no coolant, so we just have oil feed from the oil filter housing, just like stock, and then a drain that goes right back into the pan. All right, and the manifold's off. And if you had cylinder 1 in the which cylinder did Craig destroy bingo game, you win. Contact me for your prize. The rest of them look pretty good. Some, I don't know what this is, oil, water, around number 3 too. So we'll take a look at that as well when we take it apart. I'm sure the gasket will tell us exactly what happened. We'll get this apart here in just a minute, so stay tuned. Got the valve cover off, turbos off. I think I already covered that. See the giant leak here, some oil here. So I loosened up the spark plugs. Not sure what I did with the socket. Here it is. So loosened up the spark plugs, took a quick look at them, but I wanted to show you guys how they come out. So we'll start over here with number 1, the cylinder that popped. So this one will be a little bit tougher to read, I think. Now, I'm not an expert at this. I just know to look for specs and see where things are. So this guy, hopefully we can focus in on it. I don't think it's going to focus, but no specs on it. No super hot strap. I mean, you can see the coolant is burnt onto it, but it doesn't look so bad. So not a single spec on it. I mean, it smells horrible. I'm assuming it's the coolant and the coolant, the gas, and the oil all mixing in there. But that is cylinder 1, so not terrible. Kind of surprised actually. Number 2. So here we go. Number 2, coated in oil. So this one, again, doesn't show really any knock on it that I can tell. It's not way up the strap. It's going to be tough with these anyways because I'm assuming have coolant in them, but this one looks like it's coated in oil, which is pretty gross. This is also a newish head, apparently rebuilt and then sat on a shelf for a while. So we are gonna do number 3. So here is number 3. Same. So this one there's some white stuff on there. Down in the well there's a little of like dust. It's like oxidation from the aluminum, so you can see it on the top of the spark plug. But same situation. I don't see any telltale signs of knock. I mean, nothing's melted. There's no specks. Everything looks good except for having oil all over the threads. So that's a disappointment. Last one. Take out number 4. So look at this guy, covered in oil. Again, strap looks good. I'm hoping that this thing focuses. I don't know that it will, but strap looked good. The nothing's melted. There are no specks. Just a ton of oil. So we're gonna take the rest of this apart, see how it goes. Heads off. Got it down here. ARP studs came out. It's ready to go. So here it is, the moment of truth. So we go along here. Lots of oil. This engine was just put back together. I just had it apart, just put a new head gasket on it. So it was pretty clean. I cleaned all the piston tops off. So something tells me that head actually needs new valve seals. So I'll probably send it out. I have valve seals sitting around. I didn't do it because we thought it was in good shape. So anyways, piston 1, looks like at some point valves have hit this. I don't remember if this had happened in the past or if that's new. But in either case, that would be the intake side. And if you look, as we go across here, they all have a nick on them. So I'll have to take a look at that. I don't think that that's in my ownership. I think the previous owner is actually subscribed here, so he may tell me, or he may know, I should say, if those ever had the nick in them. So head gasket's out. Obviously, it's cylinder 1. 4 looks good. 3 looks good. 2 looks great. 1, obviously, pretty beat up here. So pushed it out right into the water jacket. So exactly what we would expect happened in that case. So weird though. In my experience, number 1, an outside cylinder is not typically one of the ones to go first. It's usually one of the 2 center ones because they hold the most heat. You guys are welcome to correct me if that's the case. I don't remember. A long time ago I had a 9.5 that cracked a piston, and I seem to remember that being one of the center ones too, 2 or 3. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. Those of you that don't know, the T5s have the strong pistons in them. Those are the stronger engines. That's what this engine is. Although this one has the forged pistons in it. So these are Wassners, by the way. I guess they used to make Wassners for the 234. They didn't. They may be doing it again. I'm not entirely sure. But, I mean, otherwise, this gasket and the deck look good. There's no signs of breach or seeping otherwise. Gasket underside looks good. Just the one spot there. These look like they're pretty flush with the deck, so we'll turn it over, make sure that they all come up and they're flush with the deck at top dead center. That would be my first indication of a bent rod, although these are all, like I said, flush with the deck. So we'll crank it over. I'm sorry I can't do that. All right, so turned it over, and everything looks good. So I was able to now check the cylinder 4, cylinder 1. The walls look great. Cylinder walls look fine, even for having sat with moisture in them for, it's probably been 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it's been. So they look pretty good. So one looks good, no scoring. I was a little concerned that maybe because of knock there'd be some scoring. It doesn't seem to be the case at all, actually. I guess I'll have to inspect that, but I have a feeling that that's just from sitting with the moisture. If I turn it over a couple times, it'll probably rub out. It's certainly not, can't even feel it with your fingernail. It's pretty smooth, actually. 4, much the same, a really good shape. Let me grab a light here. Sorry, it's just a cell phone, but everything looks pretty good. I mean, it's still cross-hatched. I mean, it's pretty smooth in there, but all looks well. These look pretty good. I am a little suspicious of the deck. When I rub this way, I can actually feel the piston maybe be a little above the deck. So I'll have to look and see. Now this, if I go this way, pretty smooth. This way, a little above. So well, maybe it's just the rings, because as I move it, you know, the piston actually rocks. So now it's flush. I think it's just the slack in the rings. So man, there's water coming out of there. So gotta drain this. There's still water in the coolant. I haven't drained it yet. But in either case, all looks pretty good so far. I guess I can see why it makes so much noise now. These rings must be pretty loose. I'm gonna re-bearing it, put it back together and run it. If it turns out that it's got low compression once I put a gasket in and stuff, I'll probably run it for the year, and then over the winter send it out maybe to a machine shop. So I am a little suspicious of the deck. I'm going to run a straight edge over it. You know, it keeps blowing on the back side here on the exhaust side. So it feels okay. There's no like slag or anything like that. So should be able to just whiz wheel it smooth and be good. But that's good news. So we'll be flipping it over, check out the bearings. I have rod bearings on the shelf over there. I didn't order mains because kind of working on the assumption that they're good, but we'll get it apart and see how they are. Well, boys, I got the oil out finally. On the top, it looks pretty okay. I'm a little concerned as this oil came out of the engine. It looked pretty gnarly. What I can't tell is if it's just everything being mixed up, because if we look at it here, not too bad. Didn't see any like metal come out of it, but it's clearly thicker on the bottom. So we're gonna pop the but there's no metal in there, no metal at all. I'm gonna have to drain this again, but as far as I could tell, no metal, no bearings, but just really ugly oil. So we'll take a look at it. Whew, I'm a little scared there, but it's a nick in the wrench. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. I think it's just really whipped up oil and coolant, but I'm going to pull the rod caps off here in just a second. We'll see how that goes. Wish me luck, guys. So I got it turned over here on the stand, drained what was left of the oil and coolant out. I'm just going to zip through the oil pan bolts here real quick. Then we can take a look at what's under the caps, see how bad it is. So I'll fast motion this guy for you. We'll take a peek in just a minute. All right, guys, so I got it apart. This is what's in there. And I have to be honest, I've never destroyed an engine before. Not like this anyways, but I can't tell. There's literally nothing. There's no collection on the bottom. There's no dust, there's no silver, there's no sparkles, there's no flecks. There's nothing. There's just this super chocolatey milk looking oil. So I can't tell. I mean, there's no sparkle, there's no shine to it. I think that this is just coolant oil. May have been spared here. Obviously I have to take off the baffle here, so I'm going to do that in just a second. We'll take a look down at the screen and see how that looks. We'll go from there. All right, so we've got this here on the bench. We're going to start pulling off the torques for the baffle here, so we can take a look down on the screen. You guys more familiar with this than I may already know what I'm in for when I get under here. Last time I had this office, when I put the engine together, I did clean this all when I did that. So this was a part for that, so I know what it should look like underneath. Again, I'm being optimistic with this oil mess that's under here. I'm hoping there's like no sparkle to it, no shine, so this might be me talking myself into it. This might be my first stage of grief, I should say, is denying it. So, man, 3/8 would have been much better for this. Man, who made these so tight? All right. Note to self, do not torque those down when it goes back together. All right, so that's off. Baffle out. Yeah, guys, this is like, aside from being covered in what is essentially chocolate milk, there's no metal. No metal at all. Unless this is all suspended in the oil, which would be amazing. So there's that. Let's push this off to the side here. I covered my hands in oil now. Let's see here. Let's pick up the screen. Screen seems okay. Not torqued down. 100 pounds of torque. So now, I don't know if you saw it in the earlier videos, but over here I've got a parts washer. When I first got this 900, obviously I had the 234, which was put together before I had it. But to put the 234 into the 9.3, you have to change the front cover, move over some of the accessories and stuff like that. The engine actually came out of a 9000. So there's a little bit of work you have to do to get it ready to go over. So anyways, so here's the screen. It's got some shit in it, but not nearly as bad as some of that I've seen. And honestly, what's in here is, it's not metal. It almost looks like oil filter fibers, if we're being honest. It's cloth. And then there's actually some like red, almost like red paint from the car. So that's a little bit weird, actually. But otherwise, I would say no metal, no chunks of metal in here. Pretty good. The oil pan itself, I mean, there's definitely some stuff here at the bottom, but it's not metal. It looks like, I don't know what the hell that is. Oh, that actually looks like metal. But not like bearing or anything. So let's get this apart. We'll see how it looks. Again, maybe there is some metal here, but this actually almost looks like machining, like off the cylinder head or something. I mean, there's no dust. There's no sparkles. There's no copper from the bearings. So we'll see how this goes. So I guess I'm going to remain cautiously optimistic here, see how this goes, but I'm going to work my way over there and take the bearing caps off, see how that goes. So I just came back over to the engine, looking through here. Again, everything looks pretty clean. Everything looks all right. Nothing stands out as being broken, out of place. All looks well. Piston tops all look really good. Does look like there's some heat put into this, so I'm gonna have to take off this this main cap, take a look at this guy. But admittedly, I don't know what it looked like before, but I'm gonna have to take a look and make sure that that there's not a bad bearing under there. Then I'll rotate them through and check out the bearing caps. But I'm gonna start here actually, because I mean, if this is bad, then the engine's junk. If this main bearing's bad, so. Gonna start there. I'll check in with you in a second. Yep, there it is. So the cap 3. Now the interesting thing is that, so we're definitely down to copper here. No bueno. So bad news, guys. Let's take a look, see how. We're going to rotate the engine over. Actually, let's see if we can just clean it up real quick. So here's where we are. Down to copper, obviously, but look at this thing. It's unscathed. Perfectly fine. Not a single scratch, not a single mark. Perfect. Now, one of you guys will have to tell me, again, I've never gotten this deep into this engine, or one of these for that matter. But, you know, what am I looking at here for this bluing? Now, is this a matter of machining? Is that what that's from? I've never pulled a 234 apart before, and I don't have my 204 to compare it to. So, just not that familiar. Oh, it also looks like maybe a thrust washer. There's a and this is going to have to come down and come apart now that I look at it. Unless that's just because the cap is off, it's not holding it in its spot. But it looks like there's thrust washers here too that are out of place. So I'll have to dig deeper into this. Looks like I'm gonna have to do some investigating. I was hoping this is gonna be super easy, but it looks like I've got some work ahead of me. So depending on the scope of the damage here, we may end up building a 204 instead of the 234. Although I have some hope and some faith that this is going to be all right. So stick with me. I'll keep us updated. Disappointing, to say the least. Not a lot of glitter in there, but clearly we are down to copper here. So no cracks, just into the copper. You know, we'll have to reach out, see what the pros think. Good news is, looking at these are standard bearings, so this crank has never been cut. Hoping that I don't have to go down that road. So I'll keep you guys updated. All right, guys, it's Monday night after work. Just getting out to the garage. I'm going to start taking this thing apart now. I'm going to take the oil pump, the front case. Different people call it different things. The back of the engine's all cleared up. All the brackets are off. Front, I've taken the water pump and the pipes off. Oil cooler is out. It's draining into the pan. Once we get this off, we'll take a look. Guides look pretty worn, so I'm expecting to have to replace those. Honestly, if it's a part, just replace them. They're like, I don't know, $30 for the set. Absolutely worth going ahead and doing. And then that's it. Once we get this apart, once this is off, I'm going to hang the engine again from the engine stand so that I can zip off the flywheel bolts. Then I'll be able to take off the gable plate, flip this over, disconnect rods, take out the mains, get this crank out of here. I'll show you once I flip it over. It does need a new crank. There's one inside that bag over there. I think I mentioned it before. As soon as I mentioned to some of my friends that this crank was pretty beat up, Matty from Corona Performance literally was like, "Hey, take this crank I have for you." So big shout out to him. Support the guys that support you for sure. And then after that, once it's apart, we'll take a look, and there's two different sets of bearings for this for mains, and I've actually got to get it open to see which ones I need to order for this. The gentleman that I bought the engine from can't remember what year the block is, so just going to take care of that. And then those are going to be in order from eSob parts too, so just make sure that you guys that have Sobs, when you're looking for OEM replacement stuff, certainly check out eSob parts. Matty, another Matt actually, he does a ton to support us, whether it's Sobs at Carlisle, whatever it is, he's helping out. So so again, mains, thrust washers, timing guides, and rear main seal on this, and a head gasket kit. And I think we'll be able to put this one back together. So hopefully having that, I think those parts hopefully will be here this weekend, and we can start putting this together. I'll try to break this down into a couple videos. I don't like when they get super long. So there's that. We're gonna get to work taking off the front case here. Next time you see it, should be upside down with the crank coming out of it. All right, guys. So just spent a couple nights in here in the garage after work. I've got the block torn down as much as I'm going to need to for this project. Timing gear is off. Guides and everything are off here. Gable plate and everything are off the back here. So at this point, we are crank is out. So I'm going to take us over to the workshop here in a couple minutes so we can take a look at that. But just give a quick glance. You can see the mains, pretty rough shape. I mean, they're not terrible, but clearly through the coating. Number 3 was the worst here. So that's the bearing that I'll show you when we get over to the table over there. But this one was the worst. Luckily it didn't spin. So the crank took most of the abuse here. But all the rods look pretty good to me. The bearings look alright. They still have their coating on them. So number 2 here, the bearing went with the crank, but still okay. It's a little polished, but still okay. So all right there. Walk with me over to the workshop here. We can take a look at the crank. Just got it out, actually blasted it with brake clean just to clean it up so we can get some good video of it here. You can see this is the scuffed up part of the crank. Now, I was a little heartbroken. I think earlier in the video, I had pulled it apart, and this is what I saw when I took it apart, is that number 3 was, it really is like perfect shape, and I was like, oh, sweet. But turned it over, and as I got out, you can see the bearing is scuffed up there. So crank is obviously out of round. Bummer. So we'll take this, drop it off to a machine shop. I gotta get some recommendations, see if it can be cut or where we are with it. But there's that. Otherwise, you can see the rods are all in really good shape. This one's got a little scuffing on it, but I'm assuming that this is a result of the low pressure from having the mains be bad. But all the other rods are fine. The bearings, like I said, look pretty good. This is the bearing, the main that came off of number 3, and then these are the ones for 2. Like I said, a little polished. They still have some of the coating left, but they're a little polished. But everything was good. So This one looks a little bit more, but again, I think it's a result of the crank being out around. But new crank is in the bag. Just got to sand it, polish it up a little bit, and we'll be good. Waiting on bearings, waiting on main bearings to come over from ESOB parts, head gasket kit, rear main seal, and timing guides. So as soon as those get in, which should be this week, I'll be putting the engine together. So what I'll probably end up doing is taking, I've probably got like 4 days of video at this point. So what you'll have seen is that. So I'll try and squish it all into one video so it's not super long, but that's that. And then one of the last things I wanted to do on this video is give a big shout out to Matty at ESOB Parts. I didn't even ask again, and he offered to help out with this project. So huge thanks to Matt. Turns out that Matts that like Sobs are really nice guys. So big shout out again to Krona for helping with the crank, Matty at Krona, and then Matt at ESOB Parts. Great guy, one of my favorite people to see at Carlisle. So support these guys because they support us, whether directly or indirectly. They're helping to keep these things on the road, the cars that we all love and love to hate. So help them out, hook them up. So that's it. So the next time we see this, next video will be me slapping it together and hoping for the best. So stay tuned, I guess, but I appreciate you sticking around through this, and we'll see you next time. Appreciate it. Take care.